After returning from an international journey that lasted a week, I was caught off guard by an unexpected call from my mother-in-law, Judy. She was brimming with excitement as she shared news of a $52,000 windfall we had saved. Puzzled, I racked my brain trying to remember any occasion where such a large amount of money had come into play. As a freelance jewelry designer, I keep a savings account for emergencies, but I certainly don't stash large sums of cash. Moreover, my bank card, which no one else can access, was securely with me. Judy, sounding triumphant, explained that she found the money in the sideboard drawer and assumed it was all right to take it because we were doing well financially. Before I could probe further, she thanked me and hinted at relying on me for future financial help before hanging up. I was left in a state of bewilderment about the alleged missing $52,000. This confusion persisted until my husband, Edward, returned from work and clarified that there had been a significant misunderstanding. However, a month later, Judy bombarded me with calls. Initially, I ignored the incessant ringing, but the relentless notifications drove me to pick up the phone. Heavy with accusations for my supposed negligence, Judy's voice filled the room. She felt wronged, but in my view, she was merely facing the consequences of her assumptions. My life is shared with my husband, Edward. We are both busy individuals deeply involved in running my burgeoning jewelry design business. Early in our marriage, Edward's stable corporate job supported us, while my design gigs were sporadic. However, as my business took off around the time I turned 35, demanding more of my time and attention, Edward made a bold move. He left his promising career to join forces with me. Together, we landed contracts with top international brands, boosting both our careers and personal lives. Handling success brought its own set of challenges, particularly concerning Judy, who lived alone in the family home. She viewed our lives through a lens of affluence, often making financial demands. "You always seem to be living so lavishly. I'm jealous," she would say. Although attending product launches and dinners with executives was part of my job, Judy saw these commitments as leisure activities. Her financial requests became increasingly personal, once asking for money to throw a party, despite the high costs and obligations associated with maintaining our business image. These episodes underscored the complexities of managing familial expectations alongside a thriving career. Living a seemingly glamorous life wasn't a choice but a necessity for our business. Judy, my mother-in-law, often viewed our lifestyle through a lens of envy and sarcasm, misunderstanding the real nature of our expenses. Dressed up beautifully, eating at expensive places, "I envy you," she would say. Despite my efforts to explain, Edward, being her son, sometimes gave in to her financial requests, believing it a small price to pay for peace. "If giving her a little money keeps her quiet, then it's worth it," he would rationalize, finding it easier to appease her than face disruptions. However, Judy's demands only grew over time. She recently expressed a desire for a new dress for an upcoming gathering. When she visited, she insisted on a specific, expensive outfit, along with a matching bag, leaving us frustrated with her constant requests. To manage these, Edward had previously set up a credit card for Judy, instructing her to use it for personal expenses. Initially, she overspent significantly, and despite warnings from Edward, she continued her lavish spending. This pattern of financial demands was exhausting both Edward and me, as we tried to balance supporting family while maintaining the integrity and sustainability of our business. I found an exquisite ring and couldn't resist purchasing it, though I regret not informing you beforehand. "Unfortunately, the bill was exorbitant," Judy admitted once, unaware of the financial strain her unrestrained spending was causing. Concerned, we considered it best to reclaim the card if spending remained unchecked. "We simply cannot cover these costs," we explained. The credit card was in Judy's name, but Edward managed and paid the bills. Judy seemed to treat it as an unlimited resource, not fully understanding that every purchase needed eventual payment. As she didn't feel the direct impact of spending her own money, She used the card freely. To curb her spending, Edward decided to set a limit on the card. This decision led to Judy storming into our home, frustrated and complaining when she couldn't pay for her shopping. "What the heck? I couldn't pay for my shopping the other day," she exclaimed. Edward, trying to maintain some level of peace, explained calmly, "We had to lower your monthly limit because your excessive spending was straining our finances." "But you two are still dressing up, going to fancy places. How is what I'm doing any different?" Judy protested, viewing our activities as purely recreational. "That's part of our job, Judy. If that's a job, then what I'm doing isn't any different," Edward replied, hoping to bridge the gap between her perceptions and the reality of our professional demands. Judy argued that it was unfair she didn't get to partake in the glamorous events we attended. While it's true that our work involves attending product launches and parties at luxurious venues, these are strictly professional commitments, not leisurely pastimes. Despite her misunderstandings, setting a spending limit on Judy's credit card had brought a semblance of peace. Occasionally, Judy would share her grievances with Edward during her visits, but life mostly continued without significant interruptions. As the year drew to a close, an exhilarating opportunity emerged. A foreign brand manufacturer proposed that we expand our business dealings by relocating our base overseas. I was thrilled by the possibility of ascending to the ranks of top-tier designers, and Edward, ever supportive in his role as my manager, was fully on board. "It's a chance we have to take," he encouraged. However, the prospect of moving abroad introduced a new concern: Judy. Given her past behavior, we worried she might insist on joining us. The idea of living internationally was appealing, but the thought of managing Judy's demands in a new country was daunting. When we shared our plans with Judy about moving overseas for work, she reacted as predicted. "I want to come too," she declared, assuming our relocation would be an extended holiday. Edward attempted to set the record straight. "We're going there for work. It won't be as leisurely as you think." Yet, Judy remained skeptical, accusing us. "You're trying to trick me. You plan to live even more lavishly there without me watching." "We're not moving there permanently. We'll come back after our work is done," I tried to reassure her, but she retorted, "You're saying that, but you're planning to leave me behind, aren't you?" Exhausted by the repetitive arguments, both Edward and I were weary. In an attempt to find a compromise, Edward suggested, "Okay, we can't take you with us, but how about we pay for a week-long trip for you instead?" Judy perked up at this. "Really? Are you sure?" "We'll cover your flight and hotel, but you'll need to manage the rest," Edward affirmed. This momentarily appeased her, but peace was short-lived. A few days later, while Edward was busy with arrangements for our overseas move, Judy dropped by unexpectedly. "Hey, Catherine," Edward said, "but I want to shop over there too. Can you give me some money?" she asked. "What about the card that Edward gave you?" I inquired, knowing she had a designated credit card for such expenses. Judy's face fell. "That's the thing. Edward finally took it away from me the other day," she admitted. It appeared she had been reprimanded for overspending and, anticipating the financial challenges of managing different currency rates overseas, Edward had confiscated the card. Judy admitted, "I don't have that kind of money on hand either. I can't give you money without Edward's approval. Can you ask him?" Knowing Edward's clear stance on such matters, I suggested this, but Judy quickly dismissed the idea. "It's no use asking him. That's why I'm asking you," she insisted, her voice tinged with frustration. Despite my reluctance, Judy somehow managed to embark on a 12-day international trip, which I assumed Edward had arranged the funding for. Upon her return, she phoned me, bubbling with excitement. "I'm back, and it was so fun," she gushed, sharing stories of her sightseeing and dining adventures, details I hadn't sought. "And I overbought souvenirs. I couldn't fit them in my suitcase, so I had them shipped here. Can't wait for them to arrive," she exclaimed. "That's nice," I replied, trying to maintain a neutral tone, though I felt a bit overwhelmed by her exuberance and the implicit costs. "Thanks to the money you saved up, I had a blast," she added. Confused and alarmed, I responded, Saved up money? What are you talking about? I found it in your house's sideboard drawer, she explained, claiming she took $52,000. I was stunned. Why would such a large sum of money be stashed at home, especially not in a place as accessible as a drawer? Confused, I confronted her. I'm not sure what money you're talking about, but taking it from our house without permission is theft, even if you're family. Do you understand that? Judy's response was unsettlingly casual. That's why I'm telling you now. I used it. Consider it a post-factum report, she declared unapologetically. I was baffled. I have no idea about this money, but if you took it and used it without telling anyone, that's a crime. And if it was something Edward had set aside for an important transaction, it's even more serious, I explained, trying to make sense of the situation. Despite this, there hadn't been any noticeable disruptions in our business finances during her trip. You two live so extravagantly, so why can't I have a little of that? Think of it as doing a favor for your parent. It's not a big deal, right? She rationalized, showing a sense of entitlement that was hard to comprehend. It's one thing to ask for help from your son and his wife, but this is not how you should behave after taking someone else's money, I replied, still in disbelief. I'm glad you enjoyed your trip, but we need to address this issue seriously. When Judy casually mentioned using $52,000, she added confidently, I'll talk to Edward about it when he gets back. He'll understand since I'm his mother, and to him, $52,000 is just a drop in the bucket. Surprised by her nonchalant attitude and the misquoted amount, I promised to convey her perspective to Edward. That evening, a visibly distressed Edward arrived home. Catherine, did you see the money I left in the drawer? He asked with urgency. I took it out from the bank 3 weeks ago and now it's missing. Wasn't it risky to store such a large sum so insecurely? I needed the cash for a crucial payment, he continued, concerned. Do you know anything about it? It clicked for me then. Judy's phone call about having fun with $52,000 was referring to this money. Edward, Judy called earlier thanking us for $52,000, saying she thoroughly enjoyed using it. I was confused until now, I explained. Edward sighed, his expression turning serious as he shared more details. After I lowered the limit on Judy's credit card, she began secretly acquiring money through other credit sources. I discovered her debt and confiscated all her cards. I withdrew the cash to clear her debts without involving our business accounts or complicating our financial records. This was also meant as a parting gesture, as we were preparing to move abroad and wouldn't be around to manage her financial issues in person. A month has passed, and with the move coming up, I haven't been able to focus on Judy's calls, I admitted. When I finally answered, Judy's tone was desperate. Why aren't you answering? I've called so many times, she lamented on the verge of tears. I'm sorry, I've been busy with the move. What's happening? I asked gently. It's overwhelming. They demand payments daily. It's too much to handle, Judy confessed, clearly stressed. Have you tried reaching out to Edward first? I suggested, hoping she had attempted to resolve this with him. He's not taking my calls. Catherine, you're my last hope. Please, can you help? Judy pleaded. At that moment, I realized the gravity of Judy's situation. Her financial mismanagement had spiraled into a significant crisis. Now cut off from Edward's direct help, she was desperately looking to me for support. As we geared up for our new life abroad, resolving Judy's financial turmoil had become an urgent priority, demanding our immediate and careful attention. Before we could immerse ourselves fully in the exciting prospects of our new venture, I was shocked by Edward's unexpected handling of his dealings with his mother. If Edward had directly used the allocated funds to settle Judy's debts, the overwhelming barrage of collection letters and persistent calls from creditors could have been avoided. Instead, Judy found herself buried under financial demands, a scenario that seemed to be pulled straight from a dramatic movie, a situation I never imagined witnessing firsthand. At the end of our conversation, Judy, looking distressed, pleaded, "Please talk to Edward for me." Despite the pressing needs of our business expansion and the tightness of our financial resources, which made it impossible for us to extend any further help, especially since Judy had previously mismanaged the funds meant for her debts. I promised to speak with Edward. When Edward returned home, I shared Judy's situation with him. His response was a blend of exhaustion and resignation. I had plans to settle everything before we left, but she wasted the opportunity, he stated, his tone devoid of warmth. The funds meant to free Judy from debt had been squandered on a lavish vacation, leaving no room for excuses. As Judy's desperate calls continued, I reluctantly followed Edward's decision to block her number. Although part of me wanted to help, she was, after all, Edward's mother. His decision to distance himself from the situation left me with no choice. Amid the chaos of packing for our move abroad, I stumbled upon another distressing update. Judy was forced to sell her house to manage her debts, revealing even more undisclosed liabilities. The total amount was so substantial that even the sale of her property wouldn't cover it all. The loss of the family home, where Edward had grown up, deeply upset us both. "Hey, our family home is gone. Are you okay with that?" I asked, sensing his melancholy. "How can I be okay? But there's nothing we can do," Edward replied, his voice tinged with sorrow. The loss was reminiscent of how I felt when I lost my parents' home early in life. As we grappled with these intense emotions and the daunting task of packing, we realized that some situations were simply beyond our control. It was time to focus on our future and prepare for our new life in another country. The bittersweet reality of losing a family home struck a deep chord in me. Watching Edward navigate this loss was a profoundly affecting experience. It was not just about the physical loss of a building, but losing a piece of our shared history and emotional sanctuary, all while Judy, his mother, was still part of our lives. The blend of loss and displacement under such painful circumstances was indescribable, highlighting an impact far deeper than the loss of mere bricks and mortar. It was about losing part of one's very essence. Amidst the hustle of our new life, Judy, now living in a simple apartment, faced the everyday challenges of managing her overwhelming debts. At her age, working part-time posed significant obstacles. Job opportunities for the elderly were scarce, often physically demanding, and not very rewarding. This stark contrast to her previous lifestyle, marked by unchecked spending and financial freedom, brought a complicated mix of emotions. Although it was tough to watch her struggle, it was a reminder that her predicament was largely due to her financial missteps. Life, as it often does, taught us through Judy's situation that actions have consequences, and financial responsibility remains crucial at every stage of life. Meanwhile, back in our new setting, our business was flourishing unexpectedly well. The move overseas launched our brand into the international spotlight, attracting a stream of inquiries and offers from around the world. Each new email and call brought the potential for further expansion and collaboration, which was thrilling yet demanding. However, amid our professional success, our personal lives felt the pressure of relentless schedules. The dream of expanding our family seemed like a distant goal, something we hoped to revisit once the waves of immediate demands subsided. Edward, handling multiple roles from logistics to client management, particularly felt this strain. As partners in both life and business, we often found ourselves reflecting on our future and priorities, trying to figure out how to align our professional ambitions with our desires. From the window of our apartment, looking out at the cityscape with its neon lights blending into the night, I contemplated the stark contrast between this bustling, relentless city that was now our home and the quiet, stable life we had left behind. The complexity of our new life was exhilarating but daunting, filled with endless tasks and decisions that tested us at every step. Reflecting on Judy's situation and the broader implications of our family and financial decisions, I realized the importance of understanding how deeply our choices are intertwined with the fabric of our lives. Each decision, each sacrifice, and each success not only shaped our immediate circumstances, but also the legacy we were building. As we embarked on this new phase of our life, we remain mindful of the delicate balance between achieving professional success and maintaining the relationships that defined who we were beyond our business achievements. The journey was a continuous learning curve, underscoring the significance of every choice and its impact on our future.
"Are you expecting me to eat this garbage?" demanded my sister-in-law when I placed a plate of food in front of her. Having prepared pasta for both of us and hoping for a peaceful lunch, I was about to argue with her. But she exclaimed, "This is disgusting," and grabbed the plate, dumping the entire meal into the trash. My jaw dropped. "What are you doing?" I demanded, my voice seething with anger. "If it's inedible, it's trash," she said with a smirk, reaching for the instant noodles she clearly intended to use all along. Little did she know, this moment would mark a turning point in her life. I'm Carolyn, a 35-year-old housewife. I live with my husband, Graham, and our 2 sons, making us a family of 4. We had our first son right after getting married and our second 2 years later, so they're now 6 and 4 years old. Graham and I met at a party thrown by a friend. At that time, I was a nurse and he was a doctor. We both laughed at our meeting place. It wasn't a hospital but a party. Having the same profession helped us click right away. Although he's 3 years older than me, he's young at heart in a good way, and we always had engaging conversations. He was assertive on that show, showing his manliness and reliability, which drew me to him more and more. We started dating and got married a year later. Soon after, we had our first child and have been building our home together since then. I quit my job to focus on child rearing and household chores, and he works hard to support our family. He's always been kind to me, even after marriage and having kids. Thanks for always cooking and cleaning, Carolyn. I can work with peace of mind because you take care of our home. He always expresses his gratitude, making me feel truly happy. On his days off, he helps the kids too. I'm grateful to have met such a wonderful man. Our happy and harmonious relationship has helped our children grow well and become good kids. Our current apartment became too small, so we decided to build our own house before our oldest son starts elementary school. We visited real estate agents and looked at various properties, discussing our ideals and wishes. This helped us solidify the image of our new home. Finally, with our dream home design set, we started building our new house. When we visited the in-laws during New Year's, we shared our news, and they revealed they were thinking of moving out too. We're getting older, you know. Rather than staying here as we age, we're thinking of moving into a high-end facility for a more comfortable life, my father-in-law Stanley said. They planned to sell their house, but the desired place was popular with a wait of about 6 months. Hearing this, my husband made a suggestion. We won't be moving into our house for another 6 months, so how about we all live together here until then? That way, we can be there for you if you need anything, and it'll save us on rent. Plus, the kids are really cramped in our current place. This house is spacious enough for them to live comfortably. The in-laws agreed, nodding at the idea. So we began our temporary living arrangement with them. We immediately canceled our apartment lease, packed up, and moved in with the in-laws. "Thank you, Sage and Stanley, for having us," I said. "The pleasure is ours," my mother-in-law Sage replied. "Grandma, Grandpa, let's play," the kids said excitedly. "I can't wait to join in too," I added, laughing. "Sure, let's play a lot, but first, let's put away our stuff," my husband said. The kids were thrilled to live in the spacious house with a big yard and to be with the kind in-laws. They rushed upstairs, put their stuff in the room the in-laws had shown them, and then ran out to play in the yard. My husband and I smiled, watching them. Our new home, ready in 6 months, also has a big yard. I was sure the kids would enjoy playing there just as much. As I was thinking this, I saw a figure next to me in the window to the yard. Before I could see who it was, the person started shouting at the kids. "Quiet down! I'm trying to sleep! Keep it down!" The sudden yelling startled the kids and they froze. I was speechless. The person yelling was a disheveled woman in sweatpants and long, unkempt hair. My husband stepped up to her angry. "Sis, what are you doing yelling at the kids like that?" "The nerve of you all to show up and make noise. I'm trying to sleep. Keep your kids quiet," she snapped. It was Sloane, my sister-in-law. I hadn't seen her since our wedding. I thought she lived alone since she wasn't at the in-laws during New Year's, but apparently, she's been living here all this time. Enough, Sloane. I won't tolerate any more disturbance, Stanley scolded her. She retreated to her room, but the kids were too scared to play outside anymore and came back in. I'm sorry about that. Your aunt can be quick-tempered. Don't worry, it's not your fault. Kids should be outside, running around, Stanley reassured the kids, calming them down. I'm making some snacks and tea. Let's all have some, Sage said, and the kids, forgetting the incident, hurried to wash their hands. In the meantime, my husband asked the in-laws about Sloane. Doesn't Sis ever leave the house? He questioned. Yeah, she's been staying here all this time. She used to work part-time until a few years ago, but quit after some issues at work. Since then, she's been staying cooped up like that, Sage said, looking distressed. It seems Sloane had been timing her outings to avoid us, which is why we hadn't seen her for years. However, now that we were living together, avoiding each other wasn't an option. But her sudden outburst at the children earlier was concerning. I started to feel uneasy about this cohabitation. Dinner time came, but Sloane didn't come down to the dining table. My husband asked the in-laws, should we call her? She doesn't want to eat with us, Stanley replied, sounding resigned. It's been this way for a long time. She apparently waits until the in-laws have finished eating before coming down. She was essentially in a state of total seclusion. While being a recluse isn't inherently bad, her earlier outburst at the kids was troubling. Neither my husband nor I knew how to interact with Sloane, who we barely met before. I had no idea my sister was living here too. Sorry about this, my husband apologized to me. Despite my apprehensions, the cohabitation was temporary, and I braced myself for the challenges ahead. The next day, after the kids went to kindergarten and my husband went to work, Sloane got up around noon and came into the living room. Seeing me, she looked surprised. Why are you here? She asked. I was confused. Before I could respond, she asked, You're still staying? I realized she might not know about the arrangement. Didn't Sage and Stanley tell you? I asked. Tell me what? She replied. This seemed like a chance to have a proper conversation with her, so I politely introduced the situation. We just moved in yesterday, staying here for now, I said. Yes, Sloane, I hope we can get along, I added with a slight nod. This made Sloane angry and she clenched her fist. What? I didn't know about this? You just showed up and now we're living together? Get out right now, she demanded. Her sudden outburst took me by surprise again. Sage rushed over, alarmed by the loud noises. What's going on, Sloane? Why are you upset? Mom, what's this about living together? You can't just decide that. I absolutely don't want to live with this woman and her noisy kids, Sloane vented. I was angry, but I knew getting emotional would only escalate the situation. I maintained my composure and responded calmly. I'm sorry, Sloane. We'll do our best not to cause any trouble. Please bear with us, I said, bowing my head again. However, Sloane continued with her hostile attitude. You think you're acting like an adult now? She accused. No, I didn't mean... I started, but she cut me off. You're just looking down on me, aren't you? Thinking you're better because you married a doctor? She provoked. Stop it, Sloane. Don't say such horrible things to Carolyn, my mother-in-law interjected. Shut up. You probably wish I was never born and only Graham was your child, Sloane snapped. That's not true. Why do you belittle yourself like this? His mother retorted. I can tell when you're lying to me. Don't underestimate me, Sloane exclaimed, pouring hot water into instant noodles before retreating to her room upstairs. Sage sighed and turned to me. I'm so sorry, Carolyn. Ever since she failed her university entrance exam, she's been like this. She was always a sensitive child. I knew she didn't get along well with her classmates. She often had these kinds of paranoid thoughts, she explained. Is that so? I replied. She even quit the private university she got into as a backup, saying it wasn't the right fit. We've encouraged her to at least work part-time, but she quits almost immediately. She hops from job to job, and even the one part-time job she stuck with for a bit, she suddenly quit one day and has been like this ever since. Stanley and I are getting older and don't have the energy or strength to argue anymore. We're really at a loss, my mother-in-law lamented. Hearing Sage's story, I was overwhelmed. Were they that troubled by how to handle Sloane? My husband had mentioned that Sloane was delicate and difficult to deal with, but he didn't know she was still living here. So he probably hadn't heard this from the in-laws. Maybe the kind-hearted in-laws didn't want to burden him with these details. Realizing the seriousness of the issue, I suggested, we should all sit down and discuss it together, including my husband. Sage agreed, and that night, my husband and I, along with the in-laws, discussed Sloane's situation. My husband was surprised by how serious it was. We need to do something urgently, he said with urgency in his voice. First, we need to understand why Sloane isn't working. If we can figure out why she quit her part-time jobs, it might help us find a solution. He immediately went to talk to Sloane. Sis, can I talk to you for a minute? He asked. What? I'm busy, she replied. Sorry to disturb you, I just wanted to talk, he said, trying to approach her gently. At first, Sloane was cold and standoffish, but gradually she started talking. It's always someone else's fault, never mine, she muttered. I see. That must have been tough. My husband listened patiently. When he came out of her room, he looked exhausted. He shared with me. I asked her about the job she quit. It's just complaints about others, and she doesn't think she's at fault. But listening to her, it seems like most of the problems were actually caused by her. That's tough, I said, realizing how complex the situation was. However, it was good that she was at least starting to open up to my husband. Despite his busy schedule, my husband continued to communicate with Sloane, even in the evenings and on his days off. Perhaps because of that, Sloane started coming down to the dining table when the in-laws or we were there, and we began eating meals together. The in-laws were delighted. Sloane, shall I serve you some rice? I asked. Yes, please. Today we have chicken, it's tasty. I'll give you one of Dad's pieces, my husband offered. Thank you, she replied. Watching the in-laws interact happily with Sloane made me smile. The boys, seeing that Sloane wasn't as intimidating as before, ate their meal without much weariness. Good job, Graham, I said, appreciating my husband's efforts. He sighed. Oh well, this is just the first step. There was still a lot to do for Sloane's independence, especially since we and the in-laws would not be living with her in a few months. Sloane started coming down to the living room during the day and slowly began interacting with the children. I thought this was a positive sign. One evening, while helping with dinner, she muttered, You're really bad at cooking, Carolyn. And you're not even pretty. How did you manage to seduce Graham? Did you use your body? You seem like the type who's bad with men, you know, the kind of unattractive woman who somehow keeps getting guys. That's you. It seemed she couldn't feel satisfied unless she was looking down on others. I was angry, but I endured it, thinking it was only for a little while longer. However, Sloane's harassment escalated. One day, Sage was in the hospital and Stanley was out with friends, leaving me alone with Sloane at lunchtime. I'm hungry, Carolyn. Make me something, Sloane said reluctantly. I made pasta for both of us, but then, wow, this looks awful, she said and did something shocking. I can't eat this, she exclaimed and threw the pasta I had made right into the trash can. Even I couldn't hold back at that. What are you doing? Throwing away food is unacceptable, I protested. Sloane just smirked back. If it's inedible, it's no different from garbage, right? If I can't eat it, I have to throw it away, she said. She then took out instant pasta from the cupboard. It seemed she had planned to throw away my cooking from the start. I couldn't forgive Sloane anymore. I had been patient, hoping she would become independent, but she was beyond help. That night, I told my husband and the in-laws about the harassment I had been enduring, including what happened earlier that day. They were greatly disappointed and made a tough decision to completely give up on Sloane. Our new house was nearly finished, and the in-laws had already secured a spot in the facility and were ready to move at any time. We decided to move ahead with our plans and started packing right away. A month later, we and the in-laws were ready to move. On moving day, the movers were busy transporting our large items as the furniture and appliances were being cleared out. Sloane came downstairs looking sleepy. It's so noisy this morning. What's going on? She asked. My husband replied, We're moving to our new house. Oh, really? Wait, why is the fridge gone? I was about to have some milk. Are you stealing it? Sloane asked, missing the point. We sold the fridge, Sage explained, clearly frustrated. Sold it? Why? Sloane asked, puzzled. We're moving out too. We're going somewhere else, my mother-in-law explained. So that's it? We're moving to a new place? Ha, you should have just said so. Seriously, no heads up, no discussion. Dad and Mom are always like that, missing things. Well, it's okay. You guys make sure to pack my stuff too, Sloane said, seeming oddly happy. She imperiously ordered us around. To Sloane, my husband calmly retorted, "Okay, but where is your house, huh?" Sloane was surprised by his words. "What do you mean, where?" "Obviously it's wherever Mom and Dad are moving to, right?" When Sloane said this, Stanley sighed and spoke. "No, we are moving to a retirement home. We are not living together with you." "What? What do you mean? I didn't hear about this," Sloane protested. "It's because of the cruel way you've treated Carolyn. We've always cared for you, even though we didn't know how to deal with you. We've supported you, and Graham and his family have tried to help you become independent. You managed to communicate with us again, but then you started being mean to Carolyn. You trampled on our kindness, and after all the betrayals we've faced, we've decided to give up on you too," Stanley concluded. Sloane finally realized the gravity of the situation. "I can't manage a household on my own. I can't stay here alone," she panicked. "What are you talking about? We're not leaving this house to you. We've already put it up for sale. You need to pack your things and leave immediately," Stanley stated firmly. "But I'll be homeless," Sloane exclaimed. "Well, yes," Stanley replied. "Wait, that's too harsh. You have a responsibility to take care of your child," she protested. "Enough. Stop acting like a teenager at 30. We're not that heartless. Though we've arranged a place for you to live immediately," Stanley responded. "Where is it?" she asked anxiously. "At my brother's farm," Stanley said. "A farm in the countryside?" Sloane was taken aback. "Yes, that's right. My brother has already informed you. You can move there any time, but working in the fields daily is a condition," Stanley explained. "I can't do that. It's impossible," Sloane resisted. "Then the only other option is homelessness in this city," he concluded. Sloane collapsed on the spot, then turned to my husband pleading, "Graham, please take me with you to your new house. Let me live with you." It was astonishing that she could ask such a thing. My husband replied coldly, "Sis, I will never forgive you for hurting my wife. I'm cutting ties with you. Don't ever show your face to us again." We left Sloane behind and drove to our new home. Later, we heard that Sloane decided to go to Stanley's brother's farm. However, the remote countryside location meant limited entertainment options and weak internet connection. With nothing to do but work, her days were reportedly a living hell. My husband and I felt it was well-deserved when we heard about her hard work from Stanley's brother. The in-laws moved into a luxurious retirement home and were living comfortably. Our new home was wonderful, and we were enjoying every day. Our children were delighted, running around in the yard. Daily, we looked forward to continuing our happy family life together.